I woke up in a cold hospital room, tubes in my arms and machines beeping softly beside me, only to realize I was listed as DNR on my own chart. I hadn't signed that, but my wife had, and she didn't do it alone. The nurse noticed my eyes flutter open and called for the doctor, surprised I'd regained consciousness. My body was weak, but my mind sharpened instantly. Memories flooded in, sharp pain in my chest, collapsing during a board meeting, the lights overhead blurring into darkness. I had coded twice during surgery. They didn't expect me to live. Apparently, Mira didn't either. She hadn't stayed by my bedside. She hadn't even visited after day 3. But I heard she found time to have dinner with my cousin, Ryder. That's what Capri told me when she finally visited, whispering the truth when no one else dared to speak. "They signed something while you were under," she said. "I think it was about the house or the joint account. Something's off." Capri wasn't the type to start drama. She only stepped in when things had already gone too far. And if she was warning me, I knew it wasn't just suspicion. Mira had always been composed, driven, elegant in a way that made people trust her without question. But I had learned over time that beneath that polish was a hunger for more status, more power, more control. Ryder was a leech in designer shoes. He had always envied me, my business, my marriage, my life. And now, while I'd been lying in a coma, they'd carved out a future for themselves, one that didn't include me. The doctor said I wasn't ready to move. I smiled and told him I'd be checking out tomorrow. He called it medical suicide. I called it step 1. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the ones who say your name with a soft smile, the ones who whisper "I love you" when no one's listening. Mira was that person for me. My wife. My anchor. At least I thought so. We met at a leadership conference in Chicago, 7 years ago. She was the keynote speaker, eloquent, poised, every word sharp enough to cut glass. I was the quiet face in the crowd, already running my own venture firm but keeping to the shadows. She found me first, said she liked men who didn't need to talk to dominate a room. Back then, her ambition thrilled me. She didn't want to lean on anyone. She was carving a name for herself in corporate law, already turning heads. Our chemistry wasn't loud, but it was precise, like 2 pieces of a design locking into place. We married within 18 months. In the beginning, we were unstoppable, partners in every sense. She handled legal, I handled capital. Our house was minimalist, elegant, full of quiet success. We didn't flaunt anything. Mira hated noise. Everything had to be calculated, composed. Our friends called us the silent empire. I didn't mind it, but over the years I started noticing what Mira truly admired. Not stability, not loyalty, but influence, image, applause. She started caring less about the wins we built and more about how they looked from the outside. She criticized my choice to stay in the shadows. "You should speak up more in interviews," she'd say. "No one knows who's really behind the deals." I didn't want fame. I wanted results. But to Mira, the quiet man was invisible. And the invisible man was disposable. Ryder, my cousin, was the complete opposite of me. All charm, zero foundation. He floated from failed startups to shady partnerships, always dressed like a king but never holding the throne. What he lacked in depth, he made up for in manipulation. Mira used to laugh at his arrogance. At some point, that laughter shifted into interest. I should have seen it. The late-night messages she claimed were work. The sudden softness in her tone when Ryder was mentioned. The way she defended his recklessness during family dinners. I wanted to believe I was imagining it. That the distance between us was just the wear and tear of time. I was wrong. 2 months before my collapse, I caught Ryder accidentally using my car key fob in the driveway. He waved it off, claiming he picked up the wrong one from my office desk, but I knew he hadn't been invited inside that day. Mira dismissed it. "Why are you being so dramatic?" she asked. "He's family." Now, lying in that sterile bed, I thought about all the times I had let it slide. I thought about my father's funeral, when Mira had insisted we leave early to attend one of Ryder's product launches. About the whisper I heard in the hallway that night, A laugh followed by silence, and the way Mira returned to the bedroom an hour later pretending she'd gone to call her mother. I had given her everything: security, respect, the freedom to pursue her own goals. But some people don't want a partner. They want a mirror that reflects their perfection. And I stopped being that mirror when my success no longer impressed. The doctor told me I had a 60% chance of surviving another collapse if I pushed myself too hard. But I had already made peace with the risk. Because while Mira and Ryder were busy signing away my assets under the false assumption that I'd never wake up, they didn't know I had updated all critical financial controls 6 months ago. And no one, not even a wife, could move anything. Without biometric verification from me, I wasn't sure yet what they had tried to do. But I would find out. And when I did, it wouldn't be loud, it wouldn't be emotional, it would be surgical. Mira once said that love is measured in what you protect. I believed her. That's why I protected her reputation, our image, our shared vision, even when I started losing pieces of myself along the way. Now I would protect myself. No more quietly absorbing the damage. No more covering up betrayal out of pride. They thought I was gone. They forgot who built the system they were trying to manipulate, and that mistake was going to cost them. It was the day after I left the hospital, walking slower than I used to, but upright, alive. I hadn't told anyone. No announcement, no message in the family group chat, no contact to Mira. I wanted to see how far they'd go before they realized the ghost they buried was watching them. Capri picked me up outside the private rehab center I checked out of under a false name. She'd always been the one person in my circle who didn't care about status. We met back in college. She was dating my roommate at the time, and even after that ended, she remained a constant. Fiercely loyal, quietly strong. The type of person who didn't say, "I told you so," when your life collapsed. She just handed you a map and said, "Let's fix it." She helped me into the passenger seat, eyes scanning my face. "You sure you're ready for this?" Nodded. They think I'm dead weight. Time to prove I'm not. The first stop was the bank. My name was still on the joint account Mira and I opened 5 years ago, but the transaction history told me more than I wanted to know. Massive. Withdrawals started the same week I was unconscious. Funds were redirected into a shell company, registered under Ryder's name. I remembered Mira signing the power of attorney forms when we'd updated our estate plan 2 years ago. I had trusted her. I hadn't imagined she'd use it to gut me the moment I went silent. But the documents she signed recently, those weren't estate-related. They were business. The front desk receptionist flagged a recent visit, Mira and Ryder together. They'd used an old authorization code, one I replaced months ago. I smirked. They'd forged something. Sloppy. Capri handed me a folder. "This is what I could dig up. You'll want to see the timestamp on the house deed transfer." I opened the file. They had signed the papers the morning after my second cardiac arrest. While I was on a ventilator, while machines kept me alive, Mira had transferred our vacation property to a holding company registered in Cayman, controlled by Ryder. She didn't just betray me emotionally, she betrayed me financially. Legally. The problem was, Mira was too smart to leave a digital trail unless she thought she was in the clear, which meant someone convinced her I wouldn't come back, and I knew exactly who that was. Ryder had always been jealous. Of my career, my relationship, my silence. He resented that I didn't have to chase validation like he did. So he waited. Played the fool. Watched. Then, when life handed him the perfect opportunity, he pounced. I asked Capri to drive to the condo I hadn't visited in months, the place Mira and I once used as a weekend retreat. As we parked outside, I noticed Ryder's car, same black Range Rover with custom wheels, flashy, loud, just like him. The building manager barely glanced up when I walked in. "Excuse me," I said. He did a double take. "Mr. Brooks?" "Still. Breathing," I said. The manager looked pale. "They said you were—" "I know what they said. Who's currently listed as resident on Penthouse 9B? He checked the screen. "Ryder, Langley, and Mira? She still uses my last name?" "Legally, yes." I nodded. "Time to change that." The manager stumbled over his words. Do you want me to notify them? No. I want you to pull. The security footage from last Tuesday between 8 p.m. and midnight. He hesitated. I'll need legal clearance. You'll get it. Just have it ready for my attorney. Capri stood behind me, arms crossed. They're not even hiding it. No, they weren't. Because they thought I was a memory, and Mira, she thought grief had buried me. She didn't. Know that while she slept beside Ryder, her husband was up reading legal reversals and offshore account loopholes. But here's what shattered me the most. They didn't wait, not even a week. No hesitation, no moment of guilt. I could have been dead, and they still would have smiled over champagne on the balcony we once shared. That truth didn't spark rage. It sparked clarity. I wasn't mourning a wife. I was waking up from a lie. The nights were the worst. I'd lie awake in the guest room of Capri's apartment, staring at the ceiling while the city whispered outside her windows. I wasn't used to silence anymore. Not this kind. The silence of everything I thought I knew being turned upside down. Of betrayal humming just beneath my skin like a dull burn. I wasn't angry. Not in the way people expected. Not fists on the wall. Or screaming into pillows angry. My anger was still, measured. The kind that waited. The kind that knew revenge was a process, not an outburst. But that didn't mean it didn't hurt. I kept replaying moments that once felt real. Mira's hand in mine during a power outage, whispering that no matter how dark it got, she'd always choose me. Her toast at our wedding, so precise, so elegant, saying I was her home. The way she cried when I first got sick, like she'd just learned how fragile time was. Were those lies, or did she mean them once? Had something inside her changed? Or had she just hidden her truth better than I could see? The more I thought about it, the more I realized it didn't matter. She left me when I needed her most, and not just left. She traded me for a louder room, a richer image, a shinier lie. Capri didn't speak much during those nights. She made tea, left the light on, let me sit with it. She never said, "You'll be okay," because she knew I wasn't ready to hear that. One night, I finally broke the silence. Why didn't I see it? She looked up from her mug. Because you loved her. But love's not supposed to make you blind. No, she said quietly. It's not. But it makes you hope. And hope makes you stupid. I stared at her, at the soft way her eyes held mine. There was no judgment in her voice, only truth. That night, I dreamed of the hospital, of Mira. Standing beside my bed, signing something while Ryder hovered beside her, eyes darting. I remembered the sound of the machines, the beep of my heart, and the moment I'd felt the cold edge of silence pressing against me. I had been inches from death, and they had been inches from sealing my grave with a signature. The emotional whiplash was real. Part of me still wanted to understand her, to ask her why. But the rest of me, the part that now had to rebuild from ashes, knew that understanding wouldn't change a thing. Some nights I'd scroll through our old photos, not to mourn what we had, but to confirm it was once real. That I hadn't. Imagined her smile, the soft way she used to lean into my chest when we watched movies, the quiet hum of her singing while cooking Sunday mornings. But each memory now wore a shadow, a question. Was she already gone in those moments, or did she just learn how to pretend better? Capri found me one morning with my phone in hand, frozen on an old vacation photo from 2 years ago. You can't keep doing that, she said gently. She used to look at me like I was everything. People look at money the same way, Capri said, until they find someone richer. The bitterness in her voice wasn't directed at me. It was for all the people like Mira and Ryder who weaponized love and loyalty. I nodded. She'll spin it. She always does. She'll say I pushed her away, that I was never present, that I made her feel alone. Then let her spin. But you write the ending. And that was it. That line stayed with me more than anything. I had been hurt, betrayed, and left for dead, but I wasn't powerless, not anymore. Not now that I was awake. It was supposed to be a quiet morning. Capri had gone to meet a client, and I was home alone reviewing a list of shell companies Ryder had been moving money through. My lawyer was set to deliver cease and desist orders by the end of the week. Everything was falling into place. Then, I got the call. "Mr. Brooks, this is Officer Lewin from the 12th Precinct. We need you to come down to the station." My grip tightened around the phone. "What's this about?" "There's been a formal complaint filed against you. Allegations of financial misconduct and corporate theft. The plaintiffs are Mira." "Langley and Ryder Langley," I paused. "She's using his last name now?" "Legally changed last week." My stomach twisted, but I kept my voice level. "I'll be there within the hour." I knew immediately what they were doing. They had to have caught wind that I was alive, that I was moving. And now they were trying to beat me to the punch, to get the law on their side before the truth caught up. I arrived at the station, gave a calm statement, and denied all allegations. Their supposed evidence was laughable. Doctored documents, transactions lifted out of context, even a voice clip they claimed was mine authorizing a property sale. The officer raised an eyebrow at that. "You were in a medically induced coma when this recording was made, correct?" "Correct," I said coldly. He nodded. "We'll be verifying everything." As I left, I saw them, Mira and Ryder standing, in the lobby dressed like the perfect power couple. Mira in a slate gray blazer, her expression unreadable. Ryder in a too-tight dress shirt, arms crossed like he thought he'd won. I walked past them without breaking stride. "Brooks," Mira said, her voice as soft as velvet, but laced with steel. "This doesn't have to get ugly." I stopped. "You made it ugly when you used my heartbeat as your green light." Ryder chuckled behind her. "Just admit you're bitter because you got outplayed." I turned to face them, gaze steady. "You didn't outplay me. You just acted fast while I was down. That's not strategy. That's cowardice." Mira's eyes flashed, but she didn't reply. She knew I wasn't bluffing, that beneath my calm tone was a storm she wasn't ready for. Back at Capri's, I sat down and pulled out the last lever I'd been saving, a folder labeled Asset Lock. Inside were digital receipts, notarized recordings, and encrypted bank statements. 6 months ago, during a merger deal with an international fund, I had transferred the majority of my assets into an offshore blind trust. None of them had access to it. Not Mira, not Ryder, not even my parents. And that house they were so proud of, the condo in her name, the shell company Ryder used to claim it, was registered under my private holding group. I had the purchase deed, I had the timestamp, I had the leverage, and they were about to lose everything they thought they'd stolen. That was the moment I realized they weren't afraid of being caught. They were afraid of being irrelevant again. Everything Mira had chased, the image, the success, the illusion, was built on the idea that she was the one in control. If I took that away, she'd have nothing left but her reflection. They came for my legacy. Now I'd come for theirs. It was the annual shareholders' gala for Helix Capital, the investment firm I had built from the ground up. Every major partner, client and media rep attended this one night of the year. I'd never made a public appearance before, never stood behind a podium or flashed a spotlight. I preferred silence, but tonight I broke that pattern. Tonight was for closure. Capri stood beside me in the elevator, dressed in muted colors but carrying that quiet steel in her posture. "They'll be there," she said softly. "I'm counting on it." When the elevator doors opened, the grand ballroom unfolded in gold lighting and slow jazz. I walked in as myself. No bodyguards, no entourage. Just truth. Ryder spotted me first. His smug grin faltered the moment he realized it was me standing at the entry, not some low-tier assistant with a clipboard. Mira turned next. She was stunning. In a crimson evening gown, tailored to perfection, her hair pinned like royalty. She recovered faster than Ryder, walking toward me with the same poised grace she once used in courtrooms. "You're making this public?" she said under her breath as she approached. "I'm making it honest," I replied, calm and steady. She placed a hand on my arm, still rehearsed in affection. Don't do this, Brooks. There's still time to work something out. Like, you worked out the property transfers behind my back? I said louder so nearby guests could hear. Or like you worked out the fake fraud report while I was on life support, whispers began, subtle but sharp. I didn't want to hurt you, she said quickly, her voice still low, lips barely moving. You didn't want to get caught. Stepped away, walked onto the main stage, and adjusted the mic. Cameras turned, faces lifted. Good evening, I said. For those who don't know me, I'm Brooks Langley, the founder and majority shareholder of Helix Capital. A visible shift occurred. Heads turned. Several execs exchanged surprised glances. Some had only heard my name in whispers. I waited until the room stilled. I've spent most of my life building in silence, investing in futures I believed. And tonight, however, I'm here to reclaim something, not just professionally, but personally. Mira and Ryder stood frozen off to the side, unsure of how far I would go. You've all met Mira Langley, I continued. Sharp, sophisticated, beautiful. She is also my wife, at least on paper. And that man beside her, Ryder Langley, my cousin. In the past year, they attempted to embezzle funds from joint accounts, falsify documents, and accuse me of corporate misconduct while I lay unconscious in a hospital bed. A collective gasp cut through the air. Mira's mask cracked. I have all evidence verified, time-stamped, and currently being submitted to federal authorities. Every signature forged, every transfer traced, every betrayal documented. I gestured to the screens behind me. On cue, the projector displayed high-resolution copies of the deed transfer, offshore routing numbers linked to Ryder, and even security footage of them at the bank, using a fraudulent authorization code. No one steals from me, I said, and no one tries to bury me before. I'm dead! Ryder lunged forward, trying to yank the mic, but Capri stepped in front of him and simply said, Don't! Her presence was small, but her stare knocked the wind from him. I turned to Mira. You once said the person who controls the narrative controls the power. You were right. Which is why I'm giving this one back to the truth. She didn't speak. Her hands trembled slightly, though her face stayed neutral. She was cracking inside, just slow enough for no one but me to notice. The firm's legal team escorted them from the event minutes later. They didn't resist. Not after the documents went public, not after every investor now saw them for what they were. Frauds in designer clothing, but the climax didn't end there. After the gala, I returned home, not to the condo or the old house, but to the villa I had renovated in silence. The place where I knew peace still existed. Dad was there. He stood on the patio, staring out at the garden I'd planted years ago with Mom. He turned when he heard my footsteps, but didn't speak. I walked over and handed him a manila envelope. He opened it slowly. Inside were signed papers severing the last of Mira's financial ties to our name, as well as legal documents blocking Grandpa or anyone in that circle from accessing my assets. They came again, Dad said quietly, without looking at me. Said it was wrong to cut off family. They weren't family, I replied. They were parasites. He nodded slowly. You're right. It's hard. Letting go. I looked at him, the man who had bent under so much pressure for so long, who stayed quiet while others stole our dignity. Then let me do it for you, I said. He exhaled deeply, like something inside him finally loosened. Later that night, I stood alone in the living room gazing at the fireplace. On the mantel was an old photo, me and Mira on our wedding day. I took it down, stared at it for a while, then slid it into a drawer I didn't plan to open again. I didn't need closure from her anymore. I already had it. It had been 3 months since the gala. 3 months since Mira and Ryder were escorted out of the ballroom in front of every investor, executive, and journalist in the city. 3 months since the media devoured every angle of their downfall like vultures around a fresh carcass. The photos of Mira leaving the firm in tears, Ryder shoving cameras on the courthouse steps, every image had gone viral within hours. But I wasn't watching from the sidelines. I was working. The lawsuit against them proceeded faster than I expected. My legal team, ruthless and precise, uncovered even more than I'd anticipated. Mira had tried to claim she was misled by Ryder, that she had no idea I was still alive when she signed the documents. But the hospital's visitor log told a different story. She'd been there the night after I woke up. She just never came inside. I submitted the footage of her standing outside my ICU room, peeking through the small glass pane, watching me breathe, then walking away. She had known. And she chose to walk out anyway. The court ruled in my favor. The properties were returned. The financial damage was reversed. And every attempt they made to countersue was buried beneath the mountain of evidence they left in their greed-fueled rush. Capri and I didn't talk much about them anymore. She never said, "I told you so." Instead, she gave me time. She knew healing wasn't linear. Some nights I still sat up late staring at a blank screen, wondering how I ever got fooled that deeply. But those nights were becoming fewer. Ryder tried to bounce back, of course. He always did. He opened a podcast with a flashy name, marketed it as The Real Story from the Other Side. It flopped. Sponsors pulled out when I quietly bought the media agency he'd partnered with. His channel was demonetized within the month. Mira attempted a rebrand, launched a women-in-law empowerment series. It worked, until screenshots of her forged signatures and offshore dealings surfaced on a legal ethics blog. Her license was suspended. Her name, once respected in courtrooms, became a warning story whispered in law school halls. The final nail came quietly. I visited the condo they'd once taken from me. Not to move back in, just to stand in the space and remind myself that I had survived it. While there, I received a single envelope, slipped under the door. Inside was a handwritten note. Mira's handwriting. "Brooks, I know you'll never forgive me. I don't expect you to. I just want you to know. It wasn't always fake. Not all of it. I broke something beautiful. And I hope one day you rebuild it with someone who deserves you." There was no signature, no plea for another chance, just silence on the back. I tore it in half and dropped it in the trash. Closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's simply choosing not to care anymore. Week later, I was at the villa again, walking the shoreline at dawn. Capri joined me, sipping her coffee, her cardigan pulled tight against the breeze. "You finally look lighter," she said, "because I stopped carrying dead weight." She smiled faintly. "Think you're ready to live again?" I looked at her. Not. Just as the friend who picked me up from the hospital, not just the anchor who never asked for anything, but as someone who stood by me when no one else did. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." Capri didn't say anything. She just slid her hand into mine as we walked. I later learned Mira left the city, sold what was left of her belongings. Ryder filed for bankruptcy shortly after. Word was, he moved back in with his parents blaming cancel culture for his fall instead of his own greed. As for my parents, they were finally free. I transferred full ownership of the villa to them, remodeled the old family house, and cut off every last string the extended family had tried to pull. When Grandpa called again, Dad didn't answer. We were done being polite to people who only called when they wanted something. My business expanded overseas. I spoke publicly for the first time at a private leadership summit. Just 15 minutes, no press allowed. But it felt good. I had nothing left to prove. No one left to impress. Just people I wanted to build with. The pain, the betrayal behind the betrayal. It no longer had a place at my table, because healing wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my name, my peace, and my life. And I did. Bold. Ending. They thought I wouldn't survive. I did. They thought I wouldn't fight back. I did. They thought I'd fade into silence. But I pulled the plug, and this time, it was on them.